We're pleased to introduce our speakers for this session. We have Mr. Toshan Patil, Director and Co-founder at Meraki Sport and Entertainment. We have Parvati Bhatt, Senior Associate at Law NK, and we have Jaideep Vaidya, our moderator for this evening, who is a sports business writer and desk editor at the Ken. Before we begin, I'd like to request all of our viewers to keep their cameras and mics switched off for the entire duration of the session. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the chat box and our speakers will try to address it at the end of the session. Over to you, Jaideep.
Thanks so much, Yogita, for the introduction, and a warm welcome to everyone who has joined us today for what will hopefully be a fascinating discussion. No pressure, Parvati and Toshan. So the topic of this session, moment marketing, is one of the most controversial subjects in Indian sports today. Moment marketing is basically when a brand tries to piggyback on the success of another brand or entity or like a trending moment by utilizing social media and digital advertising to talk about it. The idea is to gain traction for your brand by inserting yourself into the conversation regarding that trending moment. I think the most recent example that comes to mind, and I'm sure all of you have noticed it by now, is Squid Game. Every brand and its grandma around the world has been like posting memes about the super hit Netflix show. You can't have missed it if you've been on social media in the last month or so. And a few months ago, like there was also the Rahul Dravid cred ad, which had like several Indian brands using the trending hashtag Indira Nagar Ka Gunda. So brands basically try to like hitch a free ride on the popularity of something that's generating a lot of buzz, a lot of conversation at a particular moment. But when it comes to Indian sport, this free ride could turn costly. We saw this a couple of months ago when the Tokyo Olympics ended and Indian brands went crazy congratulating the Indian medalists on social media. One particular medalist, PV Sindhu, took offense to some of those posts. And through her management agency, Baseline Ventures, Sindhu sent legal notices to several brands for unauthorized use of her name and pictures for marketing purposes. And she saw damages worth like rupees 5 crore from each of those brands, including Happy Dent, Vicks, Pan Bahar, and Apollo Hospitals, to name a few. Parvati, like, can you start us off by explaining why Sindhu or her agency did this? Like, what's the background here?
So basically, Jaideep, since Baseline Ventures is Sindhu's marketing agency and represents her in all her endorsement deals and other commercial contracts, they'll have the right to represent her and grant rights to her personality rights to brands. And for that, they enter into agreements for commercial contracts. And for every contract that Sindhu enters into, they receive a commission. When the commercial structure is such, if a brand uses her personality rights, which includes her name, her likeness, including her photo or a visual representation of any sort, including a caricature. If they don't enter into an agreement with her and they're using her personality rights for free, they're losing out on, not only she losing out on the sponsorship, the endorsement fee, they're also losing out on the commission. So from that perspective, from the commercial perspective, it definitely makes sense for them to go after any brand that's infringing her rights so that they can garner the worth of of Sindhu's brand value, right? 5 crores she may be getting if they had entered into a sponsorship deal with her. So yeah, it's from that perspective.
This is done regardless of whether the athlete has a sponsor which competes with that brand, which has done moment marketing.
Exactly. So generally speaking, under an endorsement agreement, the celebrity will be granting exclusive rights to a brand for a particular brand category. So for instance, if a celebrity is entering into an agreement with Samsung to endorse their phones, then Samsung can say that the celebrity can't associate with any other competing phone brand, but someone like Samsung also produces and manufactures and distributes other electronic gadgets, right? So whether the restriction is limited to only competing phone brands or even other electronic gadgets is something that depends on commercial factors, the bargaining power of the celebrity, the fee that is being paid, such factors, yeah.
And are there any laws in India that, can protect athletes from, brands using their names or images or even likenesses in, such promotional posts?
Yeah, so this basically stems from personality rights, which comes from the right to life under Article 21. So the courts have interpreted the right to life under Article 21 to include the right to privacy, which in turn they've said includes a celebrity's right to enforce the use of their personality traits commercially. A celebrity who's recognizable, who's identifiable, has the right to restrict others from using their personality traits commercially and exploiting those commercially without a personality or the celebrity's authorization. Apart from that, there are also other legal rights or issues at play. They can also go under the ASCI, the Advertising Standard Council of India. Actually, in fact, with respect to PV Sindhu, the General Secretary of the ASCI did say that the advertisements or the posts that a number of brands put up were misleading because they were using Sindhu's name without her authorization and they were trying to gain advantage out of it. Even though the ASCI is a self-regulatory body, it has in the past made recommendations to statutory bodies and government departments. And with the new Consumer Protection Act 2019, the new Central Consumer Protection Authority has the right to take action against misleading advertisements as well. So there are quite a few rights that infringement can lead to, action under various legal rights, yeah.
Toshan, let's bring you in, you managed athletes. So can you explain how it works? What are the kinds of rights that are typically granted to brands in an endorsement deal, and what kind of restrictions can you then impose on other brands who are not sponsors of those athletes?
So when it comes to structuring associations for athletes with brands, it typically depends on what the objectives of the brand in question are, right? However, as kind of like a blanket list of deliverables, if I can give you those, they would include the celebrity or the athlete's time. So the number of days and hours the athlete is conducting activities for the brand, the rights to use the athlete's imagery and their name. So kind of all the billboards that you see everywhere with the athletes, those are the image rights. Then you have the athlete's social media presence as well. So depending on the tier of association, the number of posts that an athlete might put out on their handles differs. In certain cases, depending on the brand and depending on the sport, the athlete could also offer visibility for the brand on the apparel whilst the athlete is playing. Badminton is an example of this, where sponsors can be shown in BWF tournaments. In certain associations which you have at a very top tier level, you might even have the athlete engaging with the brand to create a separate line of whatever product or service the brand is offering. But in a nutshell, this is the broad kind of umbrella of entitlements that a brand kind of gets. To answer the second part of your question, what can we do to stop other brands from kind of hopping onto the bandwagon of the athlete? It's basically what Parvati said, which is send out legal notices and say that you're not a sponsor of the athlete, so please do not do this. And it doesn't even have to be a competitive brand. It doesn't have to be that if you're with one apparel brand and another apparel brand does it. It can be any brand, because at the end of the day, if the athlete is not compensated for their time and for their services, then it is unethical to leverage the athlete's presence and salience.
Right. So then, according to law, is moment marketing illegal, or is it, like more of an ethical issue? Both of you can answer this.
I'll let Parvati start off with the technical bit.
Yeah, sure. It depends from case to case, Jadi, because there are certain instances where it may not be illegal at all. It depends on the manner of usage and the way the moment marketing is done. For instance, there was this post that a user put up on Twitter or Instagram where they shared a photo of a Good Day biscuit and said they offered it to their friend, and the friend said, "Oh, that's Spotify." And Britannia replied on that post saying, "Yeah, we cookies always hit the spot." And Spotify actually took the photo and made it their profile picture instead of their logo. So in this instance, there's not really any infringement of any rights, and it was done successfully without infringing any rights, right? But there are obviously cases where you're using other people's IP. For instance, in the Sindhu case, not only did brands use her personality rights, including her photos and her name, they also infringed on the IOC's IP because they used official match photographs, and there was, I think, Apollo was the one which their post included the Olympic rings, which again is something that is registered with the IOC. So that becomes an infringement of their trademark rights and their copyright and their intellectual property right. So it depends on the manner of usage. Then if we consider the ethical question, there are quite a few things to consider. For instance, when a celebrity enters into an agreement with an endorser, with a brand, they become the endorser, right? And under the new Consumer Protection Act, they have quite a few obligations. They're required to make sure that they do due diligence on what they're endorsing. And if they're found guilty of endorsing something that is misleading, then they have a fine that they might have to pay, or they may be barred from further endorsement. So they'll do quite a lot of investigation before entering into a brand endorsement deal. Right? So any brand that approaches a celebrity has to be very aware of that. A brand that is doing moment marketing is trying to circumvent all these requirements. They don't have to undertake the assuring the celebrity that the ads that they're releasing are truthful. In addition to that, in the case of Sindhu again, under the IOC's charter, Rule 40 says that even a celebrity's personal sponsors can't include or post congratulatory messages during the blackout period, or that is the period from the start of the opening of the Olympic Village till around 2 days after closing. So, I mean, when a personal sponsor or partner of a celebrity who's been with them for quite some time, even before their moment came into the picture, they are at a disadvantage as compared to all these brands that are piggybacking just at the right moment. So there are quite a few questions ethically there as well. Yeah.
So when it comes to moment marketing, right, it completely depends on the situation. For example, you gave the example of Squid Games and what Britannia did with Spotify, where there isn't anyone that is losing out on anything. The IPL is ongoing right now, and you're seeing a lot of brands kind of continuously talk about the results without actually speaking about the results, kind of hinting towards what it is. However, I think it gets very nefarious, and this is something that we have kind of come across as well. And we came across this right after Rio 2016 and again after Tokyo right now, is you have quite a few brands that you as an agency approach. And you say, would you like to support this athlete? Would you like to kind of get this athlete on board as an ambassador? And in these cases, what these brands turn around and say is, no, we wouldn't like that. We don't want to associate with the athlete. It doesn't fit in with our objectives, and all of that is fine. It gets nefarious when the athlete does well and these same brands then decide to piggyback on that particular moment. That for me is it's very, very unethical, and that should seriously be discouraged by sending things like legal notices and stuff like that. But it's when something like that happens that really irks you. In some cases, the brand might engage in moment marketing, and this has happened with us out of 2016, where they've congratulated one of our athletes. We've approached the brand and said, hey, would you like to actually come on board as an official partner or official sponsor to the athlete? And the brand has turned around and said no. So it's, as you said, hitching a free ride in that particular moment.
There's actually one more factor to be considered, which is that an athlete, for instance, may not want to be associated with a particular brand, right? It's also their choice. For instance, in this case, again with PV Sindhu, Pan Bahar put up a post, and they've been quite controversial in the past with the James Bond ad with Pierce Brosnan, where Pierce Brosnan was actually sent a notice by the Delhi State Tobacco Control Board, saying that why have you endorsed something like this? So I mean, it also takes away the celebrity's choice to be associated or not associated with a particular brand. Yeah.
It's also particularly destructive when you kind of look at athletes who aren't necessarily getting in brands when they actually need it, and a little bit of support can kind of really go a long way in helping them reach their potential as athletes. And despite overcoming those hurdles, if an athlete has made it, for a brand to kind of piggyback on that after saying no, it's very disheartening.
Right. And does the stature of the athlete also come into play here? Because obviously, like, if you're a PV Sindhu and you're very well known and popular in the country, and you have a lot of endorsement deals, then you would not be happy with other brands piggybacking on you. But what if it's like someone who's not as big as PV Sindhu? So where do you draw a line between something that could turn out to be a good publicity for an athlete versus moment marketing?
That's a very good question. The life stage of the athlete really matters. There are instances where if there is noise being created around you, right, by brands, and they're using their media might to kind of get you out there, it obviously benefits you and your personal brand, and it raises your awareness as well. However, at a principal level, is it correct? It's not. It's not correct, because if you as a brand wanted to do something, it's very easy to reach out to any athlete that you kind of want to, especially in today's day and age. And there might be certain cases whereby having a particular tweet go up might make a lot more people aware about the athlete. But I think in most cases, it's not that. The idea behind marketing is that there's a particular point where the athlete has succeeded, and you are then congratulating that particular moment in this particular situation, right? By that time, the athlete has reached that goal, which is big enough for you to talk about as a brand. The athlete already would have in the pipeline other brands that might want to partner with them because of that particular achievement, right? No one's gonna, not no one, but it'll be very, very rare for a brand to talk about a particular athlete without the athlete having achieved something, right? If an athlete finishes 5th at the national championships, right? No brand's going to talk about that. But if the same athlete a year later goes on to win the Asian Games, that's when moment marketing happens. However, the moment the athlete has won the Asian Games, has won a medal at the Asian Games, the options for the athlete to monetize their performance increases. So that entire thing about publicity, theoretically, it could work, but usually what ends up happening in a vast majority of cases is it's after the athlete has done well. I remember when Hema won her gold medal, and the number of brands that went insane on social media, kind of to congratulate her and everything. It wasn't that she needed them to talk about her to get her name out there at that point, right? She had won a gold medal. So in this case, I would lean more towards saying that it is wrong, because in the case of generating publicity, it won't happen until the athlete does something significant themselves. In which case, do you really need that level of noise?
Right.
There are actually, sorry, Jaideep,
Yeah.
there are actually quite a few, legal factors here as well. I mean, speaking about whether they're well known enough, because Toshan's right in the sense that theoretically it's possible to piggyback on someone's moment even if they're not winning. If it's something spectacular, they lost spectacularly, maybe they can be talked about even then. But the question legally then becomes, because quite a few of the like one of the tests that courts have set down, because there's no statute in India, is that for personality, for a celebrity or a person to assert their personality rights, they have to be identifiable. And that becomes a question of, success, right? A certain amount of success, whether the majority of the people, the public, would recognize who they're referring to when they're putting up a moment marketing related post. This also translates to passing off. Celebrity can also file an action for passing off in case of moment marketing. But one of the tests there as well is that you have to enjoy a certain amount of reputation, right? So yeah, it plays into the legal side of things as well.
Right. So, I mean, if you talk of moment marketing in sports in India, like PV Sindhu is like obviously the most recent example. The other example that comes to mind was 3 years ago when Prithvi Shaw, the cricketer, scored, I think he became the youngest cricketer to score a century on his test debut. And that was, I think, when this whole moment marketing came into our vocabulary, because again, like his agency, which is again the same agency as Sindhu, Baseline Ventures, went after brands like Swiggy and Freecharge, who had put up caricatures of him, and very similar to what had happened with Sindhu. I guess like what I'm asking is like, does this not happen enough, or are things happening in the background and things don't come into the public view, or or why is it always associated with this one agency?
So actually, when kind of Tuhin and his team kind of went out, we were all in support of what they're doing. It's brilliant for them to actually take this stand, because it's a battle that all of us fight, right? We kind of go in every day, work hard. Kind of the athlete is they're training, and I'm not sure how aware you guys are when it comes to kind of selling deals, but you have to try about 500 times to get one yes. So you get told no 500 times, and then the 501st time is when the yes comes through. So despite kind of going through all of this for a brand to come to turn around and engage in behavior which is unethical, and in certain cases when they've had the opportunity to kind of do it the right way, it's very disheartening. And complete and total kudos to Tuhin and his team. I can't speak for other agencies, but what we do is we keep an eye out as well to see which brands kind of are going to kind of latch on to certain aspects of our athletes' performances. And then if that has happened, then we kind of get in touch with the brand and say, hey, what you've done is not necessarily correct. Would you like to explore a way in which you can kind of do this in a far more official way? But we internally keep a track of brands if they are going to be speaking about our athletes or whatever. Like for example, right now after the Paralympics, when one of our athletes won the silver medal, we were there. Right after the silver medal, we were there when Devendra won the silver medal, we were just there trying to see which brands, what are brands saying, which brands are there, and then then what do we do after that?
Right.
I think it's also about how, as Toshan mentioned, the athletes are generally preoccupied with getting the medal, right? It's their primary focus is the sport and not enforcing their other rights. It's also about the appetite that the athlete has for pursuing litigation or action of other sorts and enforcing their rights. It's also about being aware and how aware your agents are. And as Toshan mentioned, so maybe a lot of the athletes themselves are not aware that they have these rights. It's still personality rights is still relatively recent as a development. So perhaps, we'll see more of this. And maybe Baseline Ventures is making making path-breaking efforts in this regard. Yeah.
What Parvati has said is completely right. In most cases, the athlete might not even know what rights they have. They might not be aware that their rights are being trampled upon. And then it becomes the responsibility of the individual or of the organization that is managing the athlete to firstly make the athlete aware of what exactly is sacrosanct to them, what is it that what their rights are, what brands can do and what brands can't do. Even when it comes to associations with brands that are endorsing them, right? Because there's certain caveats that happen in deals where agency or the athlete will say, this is something I will not do at all, right? It goes against my personal belief. So I don't want to engage in this particular fashion, but I'm okay doing something else, for example, right? So educating your athlete and making them far more aware of their rights is the responsibility of the agency. The other responsibility of the agency is to always protect your athlete, right? Which means that you have to be aware at all times what is happening in the world of brands to kind of avoid things like this. It might not even be moment marketing, right? It might be that a competitor brand has just put up a post which happens to have your athlete in it as well, right? For example, that in itself is also incorrect. So you as an agency or you as an organization or as an individual that is representing and managing the athlete, it is your responsibility to make sure that one, the athlete is educated on what are their rights, and two, make sure that you safeguard those rights.
So let's now address the elephant in this space, Amul. Amul has been, you can argue, engaging in moment marketing for decades. I think the topical ads that they call it, they first started sometime in the mid 1960s. Recently, Amul was a partner of the Indian Olympic Association for the Olympics. So technically, what they did during the Tokyo Olympics cannot be, classified as moment marketing, but that has not always been the case before. They have not been an official partner. Why is Amul then allowed to get away with it? Because no one seems to be going after them.
Toshan, you want to go ahead?
I'll make a short point regarding that.
Yeah,
I think what Amul has done over a long period of time is created great aspiration behind their creative, behind their ads. It's in cases it is considered a privilege for Amul to actually kind of honor you that way, right? It's not that they just do it with athletes, right? They do it with whatever is topical at that particular time, regardless of whether it's a TV show or whether it's an ongoing sport tournament or even world affairs, right? Certain athletes could consider them being immortalized, so to speak, in an Amul ad to be a great honor. The example that comes to my mind actually is Bhavani Devi, the first Indian fencer to qualify for the Olympics. When she qualified for the Olympics in Tokyo this year, Amul put out an ad and she reshared that ad on her Instagram, right? And she was just over the moon from what you could see in the story. She was just over the moon at the fact that Amul has kind of paid an homage to her. I think Amul has done this brilliantly because they've built that equity, they've built that aspiration over decades, right? I think most athletes would be okay letting Amul get away with it.
So are you saying that if Amul had started this now, like recently, maybe in the last 2-3 years, then things would have been different?
I think they would have been very different if they'd started about 2-3 years ago. The entire idea of the Amul ad, right? And if you're going down Mumbai and you kind of see the billboard that's there in town, every week it changes, right? On Pedder Road, every week there's something different that has been put up on that particular billboard. That continuous pounding of topical takes by Amul is what's built this tremendous equity. They've done it about, I remember a very funny one that I remember seeing. It was when Donald Trump misspelled coffee. And they put up a billboard with Donald Trump and the Amul girl, and they said coffee or tea, like the way he had spelled it. But it's this continuous kind of grinding over decades, which has kind of built this particular property for Amul. But as you said, Jaideep, they are Olympic sponsors. They're sponsors of the Indian Olympic Association, and they are well within their rights now. Congratulate whichever athlete.
There's actually quite a few legal, again, interesting aspects to Amul, especially as well. I mean, as you both emphasized that they've been doing this for a long time. So one thing that that does is that people in general know and they're aware that anyone who's featured in an Amul ad is not necessarily endorsing the brand, right? So that in itself takes away an aspect of a remedy that a celebrity may have in the form of passing off. Because one of the tests that is required to be passed for passing off to be established is that the celebrity has, there should be confusion amongst the public that the celebrity is endorsing the brand, which automatically is taken away because of the fact that Amul has made it clear that everyone who's featured in their ads is not a brand ambassador, for sure. In addition to that, it's also that, as you said, they're topical ads, and they most of the time take the form of satire. They're commenting on a current event, right? In that sense, when it comes to personality rights, Amul can claim that what they're doing falls under freedom of speech and expression. And there are actually cases that in which the courts have said that we shouldn't go overboard in protecting personality rights, and we have to balance other rights, because personality rights falls under the fundamental right of life under Article 21. They say that you have to balance the right to that a personality, that a celebrity has over his personality versus the freedom of speech and expression. So Amul may argue that the ads that they're putting out, even though it includes the Amul brand and the Amul girl, is satire. It's transformative in the way that the personality's name or photo is being used. So yeah, there are quite a few. I mean, it would be interesting to see if someone takes Amul to court, because they, under personality rights, they can certainly make an argument. But yeah, it would be interesting to see what the courts say.
Yeah, because like in most of the ads, subject of the ad, whichever personality it is, they're usually shown consuming an Amul product. It's mostly like a slice of bread with butter on it. Right. So you can make the connection that they're trying to show that, the personality is endorsing the brand.
But again, the question is, would you actually think that they're a brand ambassador? I think by now people are aware that this is what Amul does, right? I mean, and that's the advantage of being way ahead of the game, decades ahead of the game, I suppose.
First mover advantage.
Right. I mean, hypothetical scenario, if tomorrow an athlete signs up with another dairy company, can they then take Amul to court?
They certainly can, if they've been granted exclusive rights to the personality or the celebrity's name and image. They can, but again, there are defenses that Amul may be able to put up. Is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
You asked a question, Jaideep, a few moments ago about when it becomes publicity and when it's good for the athlete. I think, and I said there are a few exceptions there, and I think one of those exceptions is Amul. And I think reactions of athletes after Amul does it kind of shows what that actually means for the athlete.
Is that why like no athlete has so far signed for another dairy company?
I think there are quite a few athletes that have signed for dairy companies actually.
Is it?
Yeah, I think there are quite a few cricketers that are definitely with a few dairy companies. There are some Olympic athletes, if I'm not mistaken, that are with dairy companies. But in terms of taking them to court, Parvati is a legal expert, so I think there could be a case to take them to court, but I wouldn't know the technicalities of that.
No one's done it, right? So has any such case, like whether it's Amul or not, has it ever gone to court, or has it always been like mostly settled out of court?
There's nothing, I mean, again, as I said, moment marketing, it's not like there's a statute which talks about, oh, moment marketing is illegal. It's actually various other rights that a celebrity can claim, or a brand can claim, right? If they can claim infringement of IP, or of trademark, of copyright. A celebrity can claim infringement of their personality rights, which has happened in the past, but it's not based necessarily on moment marketing. There are quite a few cases in Indian courts which have granted injunctions to celebrities when brands have used their images without their permission, and they've asked brands to take down ads based on such infringement. Yeah, there are cases abroad, of course, because in India, as I said, this is not statute based. In the US, it is statute based. There's federal law as well as state law. And someone who's very aggressive in protecting their rights is Michael Jordan. So there are a couple of cases in the US where he's won cases and gotten a massive amounts of damages because brands have used his name without his authorization. A couple of cases that I was mentioning were both, I think, happened in 2009 when he was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. And Sports Illustrated had distributed a commemorative issue celebrating his career. And two brands, one grocery store chain and another jewelry store chain, had issued ads in Sports Illustrated. So this is before the entire digital era, because it was like a magazine, right? And in that, the grocery store had issued a full page ad congratulating him, mentioning his name and his jersey number, and saying that, including a coupon to their steak, saying that he was a cut above like their steak. And the jewelry store had included a congratulatory post as well, again using his name. I think they in fact had included their logo twice in the ad, in addition to including his name. And they included their tagline as well, saying that you are right around the corner, or we are right around the corner, just like you are. So, and the courts held that this was infringing his right, because what they were doing were trying to promote their own services while using his name and encouraging people to patronize their restaurant or their shop using his name. And he did win those cases. Yeah.
Right. Is the law different there? Like, is it more stringent for such things?
Yeah, definitely, because it's not only is it stringent, it's also there's legislation, specific legislation that talks about the use of personality rights without authorization, which is not the case over here. And clearly, it also depends, as I said, on whether athletes are aware of their rights and how aggressive they are in protecting them. And clearly, he has been pretty aggressive, because he's very particular about what he endorses. And since his name has so much weight behind it, he has tremendous brand value. He doesn't want to lose that, and he tries to protect it wherever possible.
Any other examples come to mind, whether it's from India or outside?
HEMA was one. I think if you if you open up Twitter tomorrow, right after the IPL final, you'll see quite a few brands who are in no way associated with either of the teams or with the central property itself, jumping on the bandwagon. there are far too many kind of cases that occur. My kind of the disconnect that I have is how effective is moment marketing to a brand's objective, right? At the end of the day, you are leveraging the topicality, the timing, and the accomplishment of a particular athlete or a team or whatever it is to connect with the consumer, right? To kind of using it as a Trojan horse to get into conversations with your consumers. The number of brands that engage in moment marketing are countless. Yet the number of examples that we remember that were truly kind of, wow, this was quite cool, it's really funny, is very, very, very few. I have a sneaking suspicion that it is just a tick mark for brand managers to say, "Ah, uska bhi post karo," because I don't really think it's that effective. I don't believe that a consumer would buy a particular product because that particular brand has decided to congratulate an athlete, right? Just because a brand has congratulated an athlete, I don't think that would in any way help the customer overcome the inertia of making that purchase decision. The thing with moment marketing is that it's largely in the digital space. And the driving factor behind engagement, affinity, salience on digital is authenticity, which is where I think that brands should actually think about how they can go the official route, how they can partner with some of these athletes and then leverage their stories when they do well. I know that you can't necessarily do that in the Olympics because of Rule 40, but in almost any other kind of sporting situation, that is an opportunity. And these athletes have very, very powerful stories. And if a brand decides to do it the right way, they have an opportunity to truly emotionally connect with an audience because it's authentic. It's an authentic story that's going out. And that would sway a purchase decision, in my opinion, far more than 4x5 graphic creative that goes on Instagram that says thank you or congratulations to our golden girl or silver girl or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's an important point because like some of the ads that you see, like for example, the Pan Bahar or Apollo Hospital, like it was just like very blatant like opportunism. So are brands like generally not aware of the law, or are they aware but still like?
I think they're willfully ignorant. I think they'd rather not know the technicality, but I'm pretty sure that, and it's not just the responsibility of that particular brand manager, right? It's the responsibility of the entire marketing team, and it's the responsibility of the agency that's working with the brand to say, "Bhai, ye nahi kar sakte. We can't do this because you're going to infringe on certain rights," which is what we do with some of the brands that we work with as well. We tell them that you can't do this. You can get pulled up legally if you do this particular thing. And you can't use things like this. You can't say things like this. I know Rule 40 is incredibly stringent as well in terms of the words that you can use during the blackout period, whether it's like games or gold or medal.
Summer,
yeah. It's quite a strong list of rules. But I think brands are willfully ignorant. I think deep down they know it's a Faustian bargain, right? Like you're giving up a little bit of your soul to get a little bit of worldly pleasure at that end. But they're willfully ignorant. I think they know, but because there are ways around it, because if you frame it the right way, it's not technically illegal, or it doesn't kind of cross the legal boundary. I think they take that chance. But my point is that, is it actually effective? Is that helping you convert more customers? Is that helping you to connect with more consumers? Is that helping your customers? Is that helping you kind of translating into sales? I don't think so.
With respect to awareness, I mean, I'm not sure. It certainly feels like maybe there's scope for improving awareness. For sure. And maybe it's also because, as you had pointed out, that there's not a lot of illegal action that is being taken. So they know that they can probably get away with it. With a more stringent action being taken by celebrities, athletes, agencies, whatever, maybe it will go down. But I think it's also about, I mean, for instance, now there's the new Consumer Protection Act 2019 that I mentioned. It also has now pretty steep, like a fine of 10 lakhs, for instance, for misleading advertisement by a manufacturer or an advertiser. And there's also jail time for a manufacturer if they issue a misleading advertisement. So maybe, I mean, it'll probably improve with time. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask that, like, what's like the way forward? Could the law be more stricter in India? Or, what do you think? Like, or is it
I
like,
think, yeah, I think the law is there are various, as I said, there are quite a few avenues for whoever is aggrieved with moment marketing or whatever it may be to approach courts. There are various avenues, as I said. There's IP law, there's unfair trade practices, there's the Consumer Protection Act, there's ASCII. I think it's not so much about whether the law is strict enough, but about, as I said, people approaching the court and then people realizing that what they're doing, they can't get away with. Yeah.
I think also, and again, as I said, kudos to Tuhin and his team for what they did with the legal notices. I think as agencies or representatives, we should also be a lot more firmer and a lot more kind of out there when it comes to kind of stopping this. We should kind of not be necessarily kind of intimidated to kind of tell a brand that don't do this. Right? I remember this was right after Rio as well, and there was another agency that kind of had their athletes' rights kind of overturned, and I was kind of speaking to the founder and everything, and he told me very meekly that I have these other athletes as well, and I've asked them to kind of support my athlete even after they've congratulated. They've said no, but I don't want to kind of push this further because what if that jeopardizes any future deal I might get with the brand, right? And that fear is always kind of there. When you do represent athletes who might not necessarily be as big household names as some of the cricketers and stuff like that, right? I think if you represent one of India's biggest cricketers, you can quite confidently tell brands that, boss, I don't want to work with you. Please stop this thing. But if you represent a first-time Olympian that might have performed really well at the games, do you really want to burn that bridge? Do you really want to kind of do that? Because that jeopardizes not just the livelihood of that particular athlete with that particular brand, but also any future associations you might want to embark on with different athletes. And that's because brand managers keep changing, right? CMOs keep changing. So brand strategies keeps changing. So they might require your athlete in the future. So that was always a fear that, and as I told you, when I was having that conversation with a friend of mine who's a founder of another agency, I think that plays in the mind of a lot of representatives as well. But I think it's high time we kind of push back and say, nay, boss, because what's happening now is that it's affecting those that really need that monetization as well, right? If it happens with a big shot cricketer, right, that's already raking in crores of rupees through things, whilst it's very wrong for a brand to do it, that opportunity loss isn't necessarily going to make too much of a difference in the life of that particular cricketer. However, if you're an 18-year-old aspiring Olympian who has done really well at the youth games, and a brand does it, and you go and ask for a measly few lakhs and they turn you down, those few lakhs to change that athlete's life. So I think it's high time we do it, because as India's affinity with non-cricketing sport is growing, your brands are going to those sports as well to connect with the audiences. And these athletes need a lot of funding. These athletes need support. And this opportunity loss for them is substantial. It's literally whether this money could make this athlete a champion or not. So I think it's high time we kind of step up and kind of call it out when it happens.
Right. And I'm curious, how do brands view this? Do they agree with, the general narrative around moment marketing?
Technically, moment marketing is advertising genius, right? If you get the timing, if you get the relevance of your product, and you get the content spot on, these three things, then it has that poison gas effect where it goes viral and it enters every single room in the house, right? It's marketing genius, and there are ways to kind of do it legally and circumvent it and stuff like that. And in most cases, moment marketing isn't even with athletes. In most cases, it is with things like the Squid Games, Game of Thrones, something that might have happened somewhere, some trending meme that's happening. 95% of the time, not 95, maybe 90% of the time, moment marketing is just random stuff that's happening in the world around us. It's that fraction which affects athletes in sports, and in certain cases, sport teams and sport properties as well, right? Like they also have their rights as a owner of a particular team. If I'm going out and trying to get sponsors, and you're saying no to me, and then my team happens to win the league, and then you congratulate me, that also falls in the same bucket, right? So we have to be a lot more, when I say we, I mean representatives and rights holders have to be a lot more stringent, because for brands, it's viewed as advertising genius. I've written the perfect copy, I've created the perfect graphic, this is going to go viral. And yeah, so I think the pushback has to come from our end, because I don't think there'll be internal pushback. And why would there be internal pushback, right? Instead of spending lakhs of rupees getting someone on board as a brand ambassador, I'm doing this sneakily. Why will I want to change that?
On that note, like we're almost out of time, so let's like slip into Q&A. I did have another question on something like related to moment marketing. You can call it like its close cousin, ambush marketing, but we already have a question from one of our viewers on this way to transition into the audience Q&A. If anyone else has any questions, please like type them out in the chat box. So Ayush asks, is moment marketing a subset of ambush marketing, or vice versa? So ambush marketing is of course like, you know, when an advertiser ambushes an event that's sponsored by its rival. I think one of the most memorable cases of ambush marketing was Pepsi's Nothing Official About It campaign during the 96 World Cup, when Coca-Cola was the official partner of the Cricket World Cup. And Pepsi created a brilliant campaign called Nothing Official About It, where they had cricketers look at, you know, red colored mugs which had some cola in them, and then, just like be disgusted with it and go and say nothing, Pepsi, nothing official about it.
I remember that ad. To answer kind of Ayush's question, moment marketing is a subset of, in my opinion, is a subset of ambush marketing. I think ambush marketing has a much darker and nefarious inception point, right? Moment marketing happens on the spot. Moment marketing happens when, that's what it means, moment. In that particular moment, what have I put out? And because it's so instantaneous, sometimes I think that intent to genuinely kind of circumvent official protocols is not necessarily there. However, with ambush marketing, you're going in with full intent to know, saying that I am not going to pay for this, yet I want to leverage the gravitas of this particular situation. I am going to create strategies around it. I'm going to spend months of planning, and then I'm going to execute it. I think as I said, the approach and the rationale behind ambush marketing is far more nefarious. One of the 96 is a funny thing, Jerry, because we discussed this at 96 Olympics in Atlanta. Reebok's the official sponsor, and Nike puts up hoardings all across the city, right? Where they write things like, if you're not here to compete, you're
a tourist.
You're a tourist. If you're not here to compete, you're a tourist. You don't win silver, you lose gold. And they just basically flooded Atlanta with these billboards. And everyone assumed that Nike is associated with the Olympics, whilst it was actually Reebok at that particular time. And what ended up happening is that Reebok ended up terminating their association with the Olympics, because the association fee was ridiculously expensive. And that's an example of when a property has lost out on a sponsor because of this.
Yeah, I was wondering, like you said that, people do ambush marketing if they are not willing to pay for an official sponsorship. But like, for example, the Pepsi campaign, they hired a bunch of cricketers, like good, really well-known cricketers like Tendulkar and Azharuddin and Ian Bishop and Courtney Walsh. So they must have also spent a bomb on that campaign.
So, okay, so in the case of Pepsi, right, and the ad that you're talking about, I think it was more about the opportunity, because as if the moment you partner with something like the World Cup, or you partner with anything, there's always category exclusivity, right? I don't think it was a case of Pepsi not wanting to pay for the official title. I think it was just a case of Coca-Cola having it and Pepsi having no way to kind of being able to associate themselves with the ICC World Cup. And what they did is they took their existing assets, and I think that's kind of fair game. I don't think there's anything really kind of wrong with that. I know that it's nefarious, but I think because as a brand you have compensated the athletes for their time, right? It's not as if you hurt any particular athlete, or no athlete has had a opportunity loss because of this particular thing. I think in most ambush marketing cases, I don't think they're very similar to this Pepsi incident. I think it's a case of there being a legitimate loser out of the deal, which is usually the athlete or the property.
Ayush points out another case of Nike during the London Olympics, where they used the word London in different manners. Was this, I mean, I don't recall this, like, was this another case of ambush marketing?
I also don't remember this particular thing, but it would be ambush marketing, right? It would be ambush marketing.
Was Adidas the sponsor at the time?
Not sure who was the. I don't think the Olympics actually has a central. Each team has their own kitting partners, right? So the Great Britain team was with Adidas. It could have been a direct retort to that. That Nike was with Team USA. I think it could be, if it's London, I think maybe it's with.
Ayush says that Adidas was the official sponsor
of Team Great Britain, yeah.
No, of I think the Olympics.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that would be another case of ambush marketing. Trusha asks, in order to protect personality rights of athletes, should there be a special legislation in India, or should the courts look to create deterrence by awarding exemplary damages as done in the Michael Jordan case? Parvati, you want to take this?
As I said before, I think that there are actually enough avenues for celebrities to approach the courts. It's just a matter of them doing it. And of course, I mean, damages can be awarded, and that would be a sufficient deterrent to brands doing this in the future. But speaking of ambush marketing, actually, that is something that brands and sports organizers have struggled with, because there's no specific legislation for that. An interesting case with respect to that is in 2003 when the ICC World Cup was being held. Philips was not a sponsor, but one distributor in the official distributor in India released an ad saying Philips World Cup Manao, Philips Kharido World Cup Manao, something like that, where they were distributing tickets to winners, certain lucky draw winners. And ICC approached the court saying that they're using the word World Cup, and because there's no law in India and they were not World Cup was not their registered trademark for 2003. They had registered something, I think it was ICC World Cup 2003, and since that was not a registered trademark, ICC didn't have any other right to assert. And they went down the route of personality rights, incidentally, saying that the Philips distributor was infringing the personality rights of the World Cup. And the court said that, unfortunately, personality rights are not available to non-living entities, because it's a corporation, it's an organization, and personality rights flow under the right to life. So actually, what needs addressing under the law is ambush marketing, and how someone can prevent brands from piggybacking off of their official sponsors. there are, as Toshan said, there are similarities because in both cases, a brand is trying to write on the effort or brand value of another entity or person. And again, this leads to loss of revenue for not only for the personality or the sporting event, it also is problematic for the brand that has coughed up millions or billions of dollars, because that's the amount that it generally takes for an event of the size of the Olympics. Yeah, so I think if there's any legislation that needs to be taken into account, it's for ambush marketing. And it's actually the Olympics, with respect to the Olympics, a number of countries have started doing that. They've passed legislation to protect official sponsors, and it's become a kind of requirement by the Olympics to ensure that their central sponsors are protected. Yeah.
Right. Does anyone else have any questions for our panelists? Now's your chance. We've got a couple more minutes left. I guess we had a very informative session.
Or a very confusing one and no one knows what we said. Either of the two.
Okay, I think that is it for our session today. Thank you so much, Parvati, Toshan, and Jaideep, for this lovely discussion. I think you actually did give us plenty to go back and think about. So maybe we'll write to you with questions if we have any. Thank you to all our viewers as well for joining us this evening. This brings us to the end of the 6th session of Sports Law 101. Forward to hosting you all again very soon. Thank you so much.